to this event run by the Graduate Art History Association. We are a student body that leads lots of different events on campus, mainly lectures where we're ecstatic to bring in new, exciting research like what we're going to be doing today on the wedding of Cana. And actually, I had the pleasure of driving our guests over today, and I learned that they are the leading scholars on this work of art. Manuel informed me that they know more than they could ever write or even present. So I am just really looking forward to this presentation. Before we can get to it though, I do want to do our time-honored tradition here in the Colaboratory of reading our land acknowledgement of this space. This is just something we do before every event, just to acknowledge the history. So, every community owes its existence and strength to the generations before them around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy into making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will, some were drawn to migrate from their homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical in building mutual respect and connections across all barriers of heritage and difference. In the Art History and Archaeology department, we believe it is important to create dialogue to honor those that have been historically and systematically disenfranchised. So we acknowledge the truth that is often buried. We are on the ancestral lands of the Piscataway people. We were among the first, and who were among the first in the Western Hemisphere. We are on the indigenous lands that was stolen from the Piscataway people by European colonists. We pay respects to Piscataway elders and ancestors, and please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. With that, I'm going to welcome another member of our association who's going to officially introduce the group to us. I welcome Katie forward.
Thanks for the applause, guys. So, Dr. Manuel Lafarga is a professor of music history at the Conservatory of Valencia. His doctoral thesis, entitled Echoes from Greece, Historical Puns of Vocal and Instrumental Polyphony in the Classical World, was devoted to the polyphonic practices of ancient Greeks and Romans. He has taught both music and the history of aesthetics for over 25 years at various higher education institutions across Spain, and has developed more than 50 courses centered on neuroscience, human evolution, and ancient musicology. At present, Dr. Lafarga teaches at the Joaquin Rodrigo Conservatory of Music in Valencia and manages a YouTube channel devoted to his research interests. This channel has more than 150 lectures recorded over the last 12 years and nearly 500 subscribers. His research team has devoted the last 7 years to the Wedding at Cana campus and maintains a website where the recorded lectures and publications are freely available. And please see the events page of the Art History and Archaeology website for a link to that website. Dr. Lafarga will be joined today by Sanz, a PhD candidate in the Art Production and Research program at the Polytechnic University of Valencia. Penelope has a master's in technology and music management and is the co-author of almost all the publications on the Veronese campus. She has several national and international publications on the topics that she and Dr. Lafarga will discuss today, and nearly 25 years of experience researching music and evolution, neuroscience, and ancient musicology. Penelope also maintains the Wedding at Cana website I mentioned earlier. Her doctoral thesis investigates further musicological and iconographic aspects of the Veronese campus. Dr. Lafarga and Penelope are also joined by Jorge Camarero Manzanero, a musician and illustrator who digitally reconstructed the Wedding at Cana based on Dr. Lafarga and Penelope's research, and Rosa Cortez Calvo. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. First time, many thanks to the University of Maryland, College Park, especially to Queen Gregory, Tony Quee, and so Elizabeth Copeland, and also to the audience to pay attention to our work. The possibility to introduce our research from the last 7 years to an expert audience, and especially inside the American academic circles, is a true pleasure for us, especially in Maryland, the land of Mary, who gives the meaning to the Greek Veronese's canvas while asking her son for new wine at the biblical wedding, through her open although empty left hand. The characteristic Veronese maniera is well known. He has been called the Etruscan devil of mannerism by Stefano Zuffi due to his ability for blending, inflecting, and articulating in the same scene both sacred and profane. In this case, perhaps the most notorious, thought the inclusion of a funeral sung mass, a peculiarly Venetian one, in the middle of a profane wedding, and the later, at time, included in the context of a biblical marriage, the first Jesus miracle according to John's Gospel. Our mother looks at this first original vocal ensemble as Giorgione's lost Venetian citizen right, when he died early at Lazaretto. However, the commission of Benedictine monks of San Giorgio Maggiore turned in a very trying enterprise on a very frequented scaffold. Among other transformations, the author was compelled to mutate the nature and arrangement of the central musical ensemble up to 4 times, perhaps 5. As it can be observed from the radiographies of the canvas obtained in 1989. Some of these images were published by Louvre Museum 3 years later, in 1992, by Lola Failan Duma. Oh, just a minute, please. This is San Giorgio Maggiore in front of San Marcos in Venice. This is a self-portrait of Veronese 1 year earlier, the commission in 1561. And this is the refectory where the canvas was hung until the Napoleon's troops brought to France in 18, I don't remember, 92, I don't remember exactly. It was hung at 2 meters from the floor, like a trompe-l'oeil. The only direct testimony for all these avatars comes from one of the monks, editor, historian, and poet, Benedetto Guidi, who contemplated the works daily from the beginning. He bequeathed us a brief poem alluding to the Veronese canvas as 1000 dolci errori, 1000 sweet errors. He had assumed his votes at San Giorgio 14 years earlier, on March 21, 1551. He was a younger monk among the Benedictine authorities, to the viewer's right, who were the responsibles for the commission. He was 29 years old in 1562, and 32 when he wrote his poem 3 years later. It was our colleague Javier Alejandro Casillas who first identified Diego Ortiz 10 years before our meeting in 2017. Next to the Malaga Cathedral, he informed us about the probable identity of the unknown musician who whispered his diminutions in the left ear of Berenice. He also informed us his own unsuccessful attempts till that moment to convince any art specialist who properly considered his proposal, an enterprise that we undertook and completed, in our opinion, successfully, and that has generated by now more than 12 works devoted to these topics, 10 of them already published, 1 in press. I show you at the end. The engraving is also the only known portrait of one of the most important and famous European viola gambists at the moment of publication of the treatise, 10 years before the termination of the wedding. His facial features are quite unusual. So individually or in some combination they could be present in many other characters, it is unlikely they all appear together at time in 2 different famous viola gambists separated by 10 years. The engraving is from 1553 and the canvas is 1563. It is also unlikely that other specialized coeval musicians could coincide in so many traits. We think that the general shape and aspect of the face and hair of both portraits show a surprising similarity, which is supported by 12 specific features. 1. Shape of the hairstyle. 2. Hair type, short and curly. 3. Shape and density of the beard. 4. Shape of the receding hairline of the forehead. 5. Form of the hairline plus 1 wrinkle at the temple. 6. 3 longitudinal wrinkles in the forehead. 7. 3 wrinkles in the corner of the eye. 8. Prolonged pocket below the eye. 9. General shape, contour, and size of the nose. 10. Shape of the alar and alar furrow of the nose. 11. Shape of the ear and its relative size. And 12. Proportions of facial traits and general overall appearance. The Musices Liber Primus is dedicated to Don Pedro Afán de Rivera, who was officially designated Viceroy and successor of Pedro de Toledo after more than 6 years and 7 prelates and generals as interim viceroys. The book contains sacred polyphony in a compendium of 69 vocal pieces in 4, 5, 6, and 7 voices, and was published in Venice in 1565 by the printer Antonio Gardano, just over a year after the delivery of the Veronese canvas. In the dedication, the author identifies himself still in Naples and expresses his desire to write a book of masses, a work of which there is no information and which probably did not reach the printing. The title suggests that he planned a second part for this work, perhaps the book on masses. The identity of the Spanish musician has remained hidden until our first work in 2018, even without allusion in literary sources, where it has been repeatedly omitted. His portrait at the canvas had confused the scholars for 250 years, since Zanetti the Younger wrongly attributed his identity to Tintoretto, in turn omitting the mention of its true owner, the violinist. This is the portrait of Tintoretto which Zanetti the Younger made reference. We believe to have shown, however, that the original proposal of his relative Zanetti the Elder, who attributed it to the violinist, was the correct. Therefore, it necessarily came from a legend based on the real context of the canvas during its creation. His facial features, compared to his self-portrait at the age of 54, still exhibited today in the Sala Grande of the Scuola di San Rocco in Venezia, seem much more coherent with the character depicted on the canvas. This is this one. He is Tintoretto. Another one of Javier Alejano's findings is that the initial notation of the score behind Veronese's head, or thesis score, this one, could be reproducing the anonymous tenor of La Spagna, one of the main melodies used by Ortiz in his own treatise. The first 4 notes seem coincide with this term, except for the third one, located a lower tone. This circumstance would indicate a coincidence close to 70% between both designs, the tenor and au proposal. The 4 signs that precede the notes indicate the bass clef in 4, the scope or register of the instrument, a flat on B tone, F major tonality, and the time signature respectively. According to Marco Boschini, the Venetian painting musicians identified themselves on the canvas by a gold ring in their left hand. The exception to this rule is Titian, who displayed a second ring on his right thumb, according to our model in memory of the missing master of the canvas under Ortiz's portrait, Giorgio de Castelfranco, also called Giorgione. The only character in the group who does not wear a ring is precisely Ortiz, who was not a painter. His left hand is the geometric center of a circle that encompasses all of them. We have also proposed that the literary inscription written in the score under Titian's hand, this one, here, is only coherent for Veronese's gaze direction, given the orientation of the spellings. We turn at your left, and this is the inscription we are referring to. This one, this one. This expression could be indicating both the origin of the egregious new guest and the name of one of the themes he chose to elaborate his famous treatise, the same one we are postulating for the score that Ortiz should look at. We believe that the description could be literally interpreted as Spania, as can still be observed on the current canvas. The next composition shows the original consort, the first consort. There are 5 layers of consort in the canvas. This is the first one, the original consort with Benedetto Cagliari's left arm. This is Benedetto, while holding the still non-existent miraculous wine, as these were the left arm of his own brother when Paolo Cagliari was a lutenist during the intermediate phase leading to second consort rearrangement. I'll show you that. There is only one mention for the presence of Giorgione in the canvas, the protagonist of the central scene as designed by Veronese in origin. 1 century after the commission, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, minister of the King of France, visited the monastery in 1671. Few years later, he left us a testimony which have been part of the legend till the edition of our own works. According to the Venetian monks, Giorgio da Castelfranco was also present at canvas. The critical detail, which undoubtedly betrays the funeral sang mass, is still visible in our days in the center itself of the canvas. This new Veronese artifice consists in 4 fingers peeping beside the cornetist's back, which do not belong to any character in the current canvas. This hand is showing the nails, and the shorter finger is there. This hand is there. It's not there. It cannot be the property of the buffoon. It's impossible. And peepings on back of the. You may appreciate even today the contour, the shape of the score. It is appreciated. That should be better later. The spin of the score, which was read by the vocal quartet, can be alike appreciated, sustained by one of the 2 cantatori di morte. The second monk's cat line behind him is currently the Jesus Christ sleeve. We think that Veronese recovered this key in the final design because he could conceal them as he did with the score. However, he left them incongruently visible. We have proposed the intentional negligence as suggested by Vasari, to left some elements unfinished with perceptive effects intentions. The only authors who referred to and described the X-ray images of the canvas are Lola Faillan-Dumas and Peter Bassano, a descendant from the Venetian Bassano's musician family. It is supposed that the cornetist is Jacopo Bassano, but it's not true. Faillan-Dumas was the author of the chapter devoted to analyze these images in the magnificent book edited by Louvre Museum in 1992. She described many altered elements in the underlying designs. however not in an articulate way, because at this moment there was not a coherent model like this we are introducing here. There are any other publications on our topic. Giorgione's lute peg box is exactly the hand of the current servant in between Jesus Christ and Mary, a hand which operates anything. It is just perched without apparent function. We have chosen the negative of the X-rise because it's better definition for the Giorgione's lute, peg box, and neck. This is the negative of the X-rise. At this point, we can already show the wall composition, except Benedetto Cagliari's engaging. The blue lute leaned on the keyboard box is our license. The performance left hand, in green, this, can be appreciated over the instrument in its correct position. This hand has established an artifact which led the expert to confession from its publication more than 30 years ago, because it looks, not here, but in the next, it looks like to be settled over the neck of a future tenor violin just before Ortiz's arrival to San Giorgio Maggiore. I'll show you. The incorporeal harpsichordist's head and left hand, linked to who it was believed to be the current Paolo, however with crossed legs, generated an impossible and strongly leaned cyborg. This figure. It's impossible. Who produced any coherent nor harmonious sound. The true current Paolo's hand can be appreciated at the top of the neck. This is the left hand of the former harpsichordist, and not the left hand. It's impossible to hold a neck and show, or it's impossible. It's impossible to be leaned with. It's impossible. The final owners for the right clavecinist arm, the final owners for the right clavecinist arm will be the brickdrum, Alfonso Diavalos. His own body, Paolo Cagliari's own body, as harpsichordist, will be inverted and attributed to Titian without mantle. Let us to observe the same elements over the X-ray images, also in negative. This is in positive, this is in negative. Titian was primarily jester, the current Horace Buffon, while Tintoretto occupied exactly the space in between his partner Titian and the monk who sustained the score. We have called Paolo I Frankenstein to this former Paolo, because his dismantling, alike that of his successor Paolo II, also Frankenstein, generated different characters onwards, as we will show in some minutes, and again during our next presentation. Our generation of the standing silent lute, which rests on the keyboard box, can be observed in the foreground. This is our license. However, it has its square angle peg box behind the current score over the table. This is the current score over the table, but not for Veronese. Veronese is looking to the Spanish inscription. This is our license. However, it is easy to appreciate lute form designs for the configuration of the other dog. The oval designs was a resource to include and to conform many different figures. We are showing the wall silhouette for the original console. The molding for the current Paolo allows to observe the position of the harpsichord player, in addition to Benedetto Cagliari's right arm extended over the harpsichord. Paolo Cagliaris. Excuse me. This is the right arm of Benedetto. In the first concert, the vocal quartet plus harpsichord, Benedetto has his right arm extended, holding a lute, one silent lute, still appreciable in the X-ray images behind tissue. Excuse me. This arm was the link between music and painting during the first concert, when his left arm, I show you in some minutes, his left arm was painting the previous modello in face of Benedictines, as we will show in the next section. The protagonist of the Sang Mass was in fact Giorgione. However, Veronese portrays him inverted from his two known self-portraits. In our opinion, Paolo used that from Brunswick Museum, as it was a Grimani property, the family who protected Giorgione at life. We are showing the superposition of our own designs obtained from the radiographies on top of the quoted self-portrait, now inverted. According to Vasari, this self-portrait was displayed in the Humanist Art Gallery in the times of the wedding. We are showing the approximate character silhouette which occupied the place of Ortiz in the former design, on top of Giorgione's self-portrait, inverted. As it was the case with Ortiz, we think that the general shape and aspect of the face and hair of both portraits show a surprising similarity, which is supported by a similar number of specific features. The facial features which we consider as concurrent are: 1. Markedly curved profile of the nose, like the mine. 2. Size and proportion of the nose. 3. Little mouth with thin lips. 4. Left descending corner of the mouth. 5. Probable position due to different angle, shape and size of the eyebrows. 6. Similar marked eye sockets. 7. Wrinkle that descends from the left lagrimal. 8. Shape of the chin. 9. Receding hairline with a right angle over the temple. 10. Global contour of the face. 11. Global contour of the hair. 12. Global aspect of the hair. We have not a convincing hypothesis for the disappearance of harpsichord and the vocal quartet dispersion, because the central scene must be accorded with the owners of commission already at the beginnings. Just the audacious idiosyncratic Veronese maniera, that a consummate maestro in the technique of mixturing sacred and profane, as he showed again, including a mass for the dead in the middle of a nuptial banquet. After 4 mutations of the central musical ensemble, Giorgione finally remained hidden again, buried, behind the face of the new guest who arrived to San Giorgio Maggiore at the end of summer in 1563, the Maestro de Capilla of Neapolitan court, Diego Ortiz, whose ultimate face silhouette is shown in pink to the left. So, this was the painter's second death. We are showing the series of 5 successive chain consorts, from the disappearance of the funeral mass and harpsichord till the ultimate violas da gamba consort with Diego Ortiz, which will not be detailed because it has been already analyzed in several previous publications. From the second concert up to the canvas conclusion, all ensembles were already instrumental, composed of the same types, arrangement, registers. The two absent elements now are the harpsichord and the vocal quartet, besides the small canvas, which was being painted by the author's brother. We will show it at the end of the presentation. Oh, excuse me, I have not introduced my partner. She could not come to Baltimore. It's Teresa Schaffer, and she is also author of some of our publications. She is Vice Dean of the Polytechnic University of Valencia. Excuse me, Teresa. She understands, sure. Well, this is the wall X-ray images, because we are showing you our next presentation at Baltimore conference. This is the first one of our next two presentations in Baltimore. It's devoted to the funeral sung mass for Giorgio de Castelfranco, named Giorgione, as his lost Venetian citizen bride. It will be introduced on Friday, 27. They changed the hours. Yes, they changed the hours. It's maybe around 5 o'clock. Yeah. The table is conducted by Jennifer Mara da Silva. And this is the abstract. I left there 1 minute, no more. This publication will be delayed probably in January. Not the 16th century conference, or on publication on the first council. I show you. We brought some printed versions, and you will see. And this is the second one. By Penelope Sanz and Jorge Camarero, who speaks in some minutes also to you. And this is devoted to the title of his part, to the 5 chained consorts. Jorge is an excellent lutenist, as Giorgione, and also an excellent painter, as Berenice, and he later showed his, I showed and later he. And this is the abstract. This will be held on Saturday, 28. However, they changed it the hour, and it's the same thing. Maybe around 4:30 p.m. And this is the abstract. Because on no reason, Berenice was forced to dismantle this typical Venetian musical ensemble for funeral rites, and his own inverted harpsichord silhouette generated the figure of Titian in its current location. Giorgione attended his own posthumous tribute, impassive and silent, holding his legendary lute. On Friday in Baltimore, the details of this original formation will be introduced for the first time to the academic community and the international public. The second presentation on the assisting conference will be conducted by Luba Friedman from the Israel University. I don't remember exactly. She said us that she is also expected or exciting presentation. Okay. The circle in gray include the area with instrumental designs. As we have shown in the original concert, Benedetto Cagliari held a lute over the harpsichord with his stretched right arm, while he was painting with his left. He was the figure who established the link and correspondence between music and painting, which is called paragone. I'm going to show you the 4 previous concerts, the artistic recreation of Jorge Camarero, following our own designs, Penelope and me, following designs of Berenice. This is the first concert by Jorge Camarero. We may appreciate some elements I described. The left hand is absent. It's not completed. It's not finished because there are many things to do each day. I suppose this, let's say, case for you, but it's complete. We may appreciate the score. The second month, Cantatori di Morti. Each monastery in Venice had at least 2 Cantatori di Morti for Gregorian masses in funerals. This was their job inside the altar. We may appreciate the second view. However, this neck must be at this right. There are some errors in the recreation, not errors. He's an artist. And yes, it's not the same. An artist's work is not the same, and the artist has all the right to take his own decisions. We may appreciate also this left arm of Benedetto Cagliari's. Probably he was left, how do you say? Yes, or perhaps ambidextrous, I don't know. But this arm I show you at the end of the presentation is exactly the same arm of Pietro Aretino, the specular figure in the other side of the canvas. It's the same. This is Girolamo Grimani, the civil patron of the canvas, procurator at San Marcos, and this was his original ubication, not at the corner of the table, because if Girolamo is here, Benedetto could not paint his Modelo. This is the position original. In the radiographies, still today, this line of the, I don't know say, la calva, decimos en español, and this line are appreciables. And his overall silhouette on top of Titian, buried Titian at the wall. This was a Greek mechanic. Berenice was a Greek maestro to reconverting all the silhouettes. Paolo Cagliari and his bottega, he had at least 4 or 5 good painters, as good painters as him, who painted like him, and many other levels of painters to make all this. They never mixed the contours, the silhouette. All time reconvert the volumes, but not mix the lines. Not, we do not observe this kind of procedure in the canvas, in the X-rays. Well, we will show again in some minutes in other formats. Then I can show you any other elements. Also, the left hand of the servant is exactly the top. The page of the book is 170, if anything has the curiosity. The book of the Louvre, 170, there is the X-ray. Well, I'll show you the second consort recreation by Jorge Camarero. However, this consort has 2 versions, or perhaps was only the result of the operations which the teams of the Cagliari brothers must to operate, because this hand, this left arm, is in fact this. It's the only arm in all the canvas, as other I show you in a moment, we fit in this position exactly for this function. However, Paolo hold two lutes. This is the first lute. At this moment, the miraculous wine could not exist, could not, did not exist. However, Paolo depicted a second version, 15 grades down, and this is the authentic second lute concert. At this moment, Benedetto ceased to paint. I explain you better. In the first version, there is an intermediate version of this, a previous version of the second consort. In this position, Girolamo still can to be there, and the harpsichord can still to be there, but I'll show you later. This is the true second consort, but not this lute. And yes, this is the true second consort. His consort still remains the funeral, sacred atmosphere of Venetian rites for the dead, lutes and voices. This was a tradition established in Venice from more than 1 century, 150 years ago. Each Venetian citizen has this right. When you die, even if you have any money, any dollar, the city, the Serenissima paid you a funeral mass with at least 2 cantadori di morti. If you have some money, you may add 2 more singers. In this case, Titian and Tintoretto, professional singers, and then they don't sing Gregorian monody, however, Venetian polyphony. I show you Berta, the second lute artistic recreation by Jorge Camarero. Jorge tried to follow all my indications, but when he did not, I did them. This is the two consort. These 2 persons perhaps were 2 singers. Lola Fayran Dumas was the first to point this, and we are the second to suggest this possibility. In fact, they were a ring, and Venetian painters traditionally were painter musicians, amateur musicians. However, they can read tablatura, they can improvise, and they can play in a group. They're not professionals, but this was another long tradition in Venetian art history. I'll show you the third consort, recreation, artistic, based on all designs by Giorgio Camarero. At this moment, there are no brass instruments. Giorgione holds one lute. The monks must disappear, of course. However, in the next consort, one of the monks, reborn again, playing a trombone. More element. You may appreciate also here how easy it was for the big problem for Cagliari was dismantling the first consort, because in the next formations all the musicians occupy approximately the same position, and he just needs change the type of the instruments. It's easy to appreciate how adding a varnish band, appreciated in the current viola da gamba, converts the contrabass violin in a contrabass viola da gamba. I'll show you now. Well, this is the third consort, and I'll show you the fourth, that which Diego Ortiz probably watched when I arrived to San Giorgio Maggiore at the end of summer of 1563. In 15 months, Veronese and his teams must be compelled to mutate to change all this dispossession 4 times. In the self-portrait I showed you at the beginning of the presentation, do you remember? Ove San Giorgio, he has hair. In the canvas he has no hair. Well, it's a joke, I know, but it's true. Then we can, excuse me, is the fourth console regulation. And this is the monk who sustained the scroll and whose fingers still today are peeping beside the cornetist's back. Then we call him an intermittent trombonist monk. You say intermittent by the Cassian? And this is 2 brass instruments, a sacabuche, and a U-shaped tube. I'll show you at the end of the presentation. There were only 3 exemplars of this kind of trumpet physically inexistent, and Orti in Castellón de la Plana have reconstructed. And we may advance to the next section. The fact that any record of all that happened during the 15 months of canvas completion has arrived to us is an extremely curious and notable one, with the exception of the 2 allotted sources. Both Benedetto Guidi, the editor and poet and historian, and Colbert, the minister of the King of France, both are direct because they origin from San Giorgio Maggiore, and the most relevant one even from an ocular witness, Benedetto Guidi. Moreover, attending both to the fact that the picture was immediately renowned from its beginnings in Italian lands and beyond, and that the refectory was continuously visited by international authorities, diplomatic and ecclesiastical, in addition to relevant artists comparable to Vasari's statue. The Florentine maestro visited Venice just 3 years later, and he did also the art gallery of Grimani family, where Giorgione's self-portrait was displayed. However, he did no mention of what we already have documented. We think that this ominous and near absolute silence in the historical sources, except for the few fragmentary legends previously documented by our works, could be linked to the identity of many of the guests for the biblical banquet, an intellectual network of coevals, high prelates and ecclesiastics, mainly Venetians, who advocated for the peace with reformed lands during the decades earlier to conclusion of the Council of Trent. We are showing the molding of their faces in yellow. However, it's probable that there are someone more. As they called themselves the spirituali, were protected by the emperor himself and by the Philo-imperial nobility in Italian lands, especially those Romans and Neapolitans, the Colonna and also the Gonzaga. Some of them are in the campus. Just a minute. Some of our illustrious guests were persecuted by Roman authorities, up to 13 as far as we know of them, those depicted in dark pink. 3 of them were processed, and 3 were not because of their earlier death, while another 7 were directly or indirectly executed, most of them earlier to conclusion of the canvas and the Council of Trent. To summarize our exposition, we may observe all the elements, 11, in their respective places. The still non-existent figures in both corners, the current bread room and Domenico Grimani, the current bread room did not exist at the former formation. There were 2 weddings and 2, how do you say, la novia, I don't know. the Palladian disegno, it means free of figures for the end of both tables. In this way, there are exactly 12 guests to each side of Jesus Christ. We may appreciate the true betrothal, Eleanor de Austria, as Carlo Ridolfi legends affirm. The actual, the current one, is, of course, the wife of Alfonso de Ávalos, María de Aragona, and no Eleanor de Austria. Carlo Ridolfi said the truth. The bridegroom are in the corner of the table. However, he said, he didn't say who are. And in fact, Alfonso de Ávalos, this is the harpsichord, this right arm. It's the only arm in all the canvas which fits this position for exactly this function, with the harpsichord. Another detail, the two betrothal, Eleanor de Austria and Francisco I, of course, his real husband. In the version the academic circles used today, the current interpretation say that Alfonso de Ávalos is married to Eleanor de Austria, who is the wife of Francis I. This is incoherent. There were two weddings. This is the first one, and Alfonso de Ávalos was not there. And the specular figure, Domenico Grimani, the patron of Giorgione in life, was not there. We may appreciate also the common right, I pointed to, of Alfonso de Ávalos and Paolo I Frankenstein. Also, the own body of harpsichordist Paolo I, whose head fits exactly, this head fits exactly inside the left arm of the current Veronese to Viola da Gamba. By this reason, I said before, never they mix the contours. We don't observe this in the canvas. All the times he reconfigured the same silhouettes to generate new forms, new figures, new personages. In fact, many of the arms are changed. These were cartoons, you say, plantillas, decimos nosotros, that you move all around the canvas. We may appreciate also the Giorgione and the vocal concert, the second monk, Titian and Tintoretto in his former publication, not in the current one. The servant with the only wine, it is less appreciable, but behind the two probable singers, there was a servant with a jar. This was the original miraculous wine, and not the left arm of Benedetto Cagliari. And also the common right-left arm for Benedetto Cagliari while painting the Modelo, who was the property of Girolamo Grimani in the times of the wedding. And it is the same arm of Pietro Aretino. It is the same. Tintoretto and Titian, I said, Girolamo Grimani, former education. I'll show you the next. In this intermediate version with the first lute, I pointed to earlier, the harpsichord can be there because Girolamo Grimani can still be there. Then Benedetto Cagliari can continue painting his Modelo for the Benedictines. The legend says that Girolamo Scrogerro Scrocetto, the abbot of San Giorgio Maggiore, saw this Modelo. It means the same big canvas in a previous reduced version in the gallery of the art, in the art gallery of the Grimani family. He is one Grimani. He is one Grimani. And this who put behind the column is Giovanni VI Grimani, the Patriarch of Venice, however indicted by the Inquisition, and is the fascia, we know the identity of near all the guests, except 4 or 5. And this is not the time, and never the 16th conference studies. This was the future. This is the intermediate console. We call it 1B. At this moment, Benedetto Cagliari is still painting, and the miraculous wine did not exist, except in front of Jesus Christ. The servant is serving wine to Jesus Christ. Conversely, actually, the only wine who is offered is to Alfonso de Avalos by one servant that I take off, and Girolamo Grimani by a small paje just behind the axilla. I showed you that. As it can be appreciated, Aretino's right arm was in origin the cartoon of Benedetto's former left arm, while painting his Modello in face of Benedictines, his arm. And of course, as it was a Venetian painter musician, previous one, his left hand showed a golden ring in the thumb. Okay, to the viewer's left, the first betrothal, Eleanor de Austria, the emperor's sister of Charles V, and Francis I of France. This wedding was celebrated in 1530 as part of the Treaty of Cambrai. To the viewer's right, the second betrothal, Maria de Aragona and its husband, the Marquis of Basto, Alfonso de Avalos. This wedding was celebrated in 1523. We arrived to the end, the final section of my presentation. I'll show you only what we did and don't read. So quickly, Paolo Frankenstein again generated other elements. In the 4th consort, there are 2 brass instruments, and this one is a new shape trumpet. There were only one version. Only three shots. This is the other brass instrument. You may appreciate it. It is appreciable in the current canvas. A section on the shoulder of the piece, and also it's appreciable. The U-shaped trumpet, this in the right side of the Veronese. There exist only 3 sources from 1400 in a medieval manuscripts. 2 of Charles, the Book of Hours of Charles the Noble of Aragon, and 1 in the Paduan Bible. And these instruments were previously physically inexistent. And Vicente Campos, the director of one of our conservatories, and Luis Escribano, a skillful luthier, had reconstructed. I show you them, and I showed my face. And this is the first one, folio 106. It's property of the Cleveland Museum of Art. This is the same type of Veronese's canvas. This is the second one. It's the same type, but shorter. And this is the third type from Paduan Bible, but it's different because the bell is really shorter than the other, than the sound tune. And this, who accompanies this illustration, is probably the first luthier for trumpets, the oldest one. A specialist, including Remet, good specialists, say that the first Luther's workshops are two centuries later, and one on Diderot times. But we think this is the oldest one. It's in the same place. And I think these are the three, the Veronese's canvas, the two of Charles the Noble, and the third one. The only precedent for this kind of instrument is probably the Etruscan litus. Well, these are our team, part of our team. We present them from left to the right, the speaker, Luis Escribano de Luthier, Penelope Sanz, Jorge Camarero, the skillful, not Venetian painter musician, but Valencian painter musician, and Vicente Campos, a good friend of all of us. Thank you very much for playing. To gain time and left time for your questions, Jorge will show his designs, and later you may ask all you.
So here you can see a little footage of me painting in Photoshop. When Manuel told me the kind of work this was gonna be, I knew that the right way to go were digital media, because of its speed or agility when it comes to that kind of work. Okay. Here I am painting in Photoshop, as you can see. Okay. Yeah. At first place, I started painting Procreate. That is a very nice application for the iPad. But as the work gets bigger and bigger, and I started adding more and more layers, so the power of the iPad was not enough. So on that point, I had to switch to my computer. Okay, I think that I use around 160 or 150 layers. Okay, in other words, it sounds pretty big project, but I'll be honest, is the whole work could be done with less layers. Okay, but it's a matter of organization and be clean when you are painting. So the techniques I employ here are two or three. Okay, there's a lot of cut and paste. As Manuel mentioned before, one particular character or one particular limb of body of a character can be in many consorts. Okay, so one part of the job was cut this character and paste it into the new canvas. Okay, and of course, when you cut a character, you left there a gap that you have to cover, to paint. And this is a kind of, I don't know how to say, it's 75% technical and 25% creative. It's not 100% creative, but anyway, it's very fun. Okay? I enjoy a lot. I enjoy a lot painting. Okay? And other technique I employ, well, is the same really. Was cutting a limb or a face or a head, and then turn it, transform it, and paste it into an A canvas. Okay, for that it's not that simple. There are people that think that painting in digital medium is kind of cheating, but I am not agree at all, okay? Because yeah, you have to know how to paint and choose color, the right color, and have lighting in mind. So, and then I have to paste the new elements and transform it, retouch it, and of course again fill the gaps that the cat left. Okay. This, for example, is the Tiziano's hand that was moved, and then that gap is supposed to show the tapestry of the table. Okay, and then I have to paint it. Yeah, then 90% of the work here is that kind of work. Okay. And the third technique was, in fact, painting, for example, that violin that were not there in the original. I had to paint it, the whole. Or Giorgione, that is called in the Louvre there, with yes, it's dark blue suite. Okay, I painted the whole. Okay, and this was more creative because I had to follow the stencils, the outlines that Manuel gave me. But again, very fun. It's a lot of work, but it's very fun. Okay? One of the most difficult things I have to attain was to imitate the texture that the picture of the original canvas has. You can see here the texture of the canvas. That is somewhat between the texture, the real texture of the canvas, and the texture of the picture of the canvas. Okay, but when you paint and forgot that texture, the result is not quite. It's not like it's not so much cohesive, you know. And then you have to imitate a little bit, of course, lighting, but also the texture. And I don't know. Pretty much is all that I can say. I know I must be quick, and then Penelope, if you want to say something or.
Sí, va a pasar, va a proyectar los rayos X, lo va a enseñar, sí.
Okay.
Cuando
Later,
toque.
if you have any question about the artistic part, they can ask you, answer you some question. Okay. So thank you.
If you have any questions,
Many
we will be
questions.
pleased. And Jorge,
No, I have many questions.
many.
Yes.
I think we have
5 minutes?
enough time.
Okay. No. I just wanted to ask a couple of things first. When the Louvre did the X-rays, when they did the comprehensive analysis of the painting, the restoration and the X-rays,
Yeah.
how much of the changes did Louvre establish in the first place, in the 90s? When they did
Related, we presented here
right, what I wanted to know is, okay,
on the consoles, anything.
on the consoles, they didn't have any clue?
No.
So basically everything
Make
that
make reference to the cyborg, but anything.
No, but what I'm saying is like they did not have any commentary about how the figures change instruments or anything like that.
No, Lola Fayanduma made some observations, dispersed observations, but not related to the concepts.
Nothing to the musical
No,
composition.
you may improve in the.
Okay, no, I'm just wanting to know. Secondly, was there a mass for Giorgione specifically that was, I didn't quite understand the mass for Giorgione that was performed?
Who performed?
No, well, was there a mass for Giorgione, funerary mass that was subsequently performed in Santa Maria Maggiore.
San Giorgio Maggiore.
San Giorgio Maggiore, sorry.
I don't understand exactly what you are trying.
Uh,
There is no interpreter. There is no.
Sí,
Spanish.
dice que si hubo una misa para Giorgione.
Ah, I don't know.
You don't know. Okay. All right.
In the registers, you say? In
No,
the literary
in
sources?
the literary sources.
I don't know.
No,
If you
okay,
know,
I just wanted
please
to know. No, that's
call
why
us.
I'm asking
Yeah,
you. Yes,
okay.
yes. Okay.
That's our hypothesis.
Okay, that's your hypothesis. Okay. And second, and the third question I have is, why do you think that they decided to cover Giorgione with the face of the composer? Why couldn't they just put the composer somewhere else? What's your hypothesis on that?
Perhaps was a double solution, both diplomatic for Charles V and also to hide all the complications on the Sintali scene, because with oil, the light tunes, the light tunes hidden better than the dark tunes. And Paolo has a big white mantle, big white, and Viola da Gambas, both tenor, have a big surface in a high tune. It's like this. Dark tunes, with the time, the hidden designs go up.
So you think it was primarily practical reasons because of the oil paint quality?
However, also diplomatic, because Diego Ortiz comes from Naples, and some of these authorities, also spirituali.
Okay.
Charles was the first protector of the spirituali. She is Julia Gonzaga. She is Vittoria Colonna from Ischia Castle. She is Maria de Aragona, spiritually. But this is why I say also is diplomatic. But exactly by what reason, we don't know. Probably a mixture. The first one, I think, yes, is to hidden the graphic. By a time with Ortiz and Charles V and all these authorities, not this, sure, but Alfonso de Ávaros, Maria de Aragona, Vittoria Colonna, the emperor himself, and Julia Gonzaga, and some other guests that I'm not going to reveal here now.
And one more question, I'm sorry, Benedetto
All that you
Cagliari.
want.
Benedetto Cagliari with the painting.
The Modelo.
Yeah. Do we have any literary evidence about the presence of the Modello?
Yes, but it's impossible that the literary source could know the existence of the Modelo. This literary source is from 19th century,
Okay.
Henry Frederick Holt.
Okay, so it's a later, much later.
In our last publication, I don't show you, but if you gave me 2 minutes, 2 minutes, I can show you.
No, I just wanted to know if there was anything contemporary about the presence of the easel and the Modello, but nothing from that time period.
About the existence of the Modelo,
About the presence of the Modello in the composition.
but this was a usual practice, to prepare a
Yes,
smaller Modelo to obtain bigger commissions. For example, Tintoretto.
right. So the idea that he's standing there painting comes from where? I'm sorry.
And from the radiographies.
So
The Modelo is
radiography
obviously there.
established it.
May I project?
No, because that's very important.
No, I show you. It's easier to observe this.
Yeah,
The better response is to observe the
of
camera.
course. But was that something that anybody else published before? No. Again, nobody.
There are no
Nobody paid
publications.
attention.
There are no publications. We are the only one.
No. I know that on Veronese the literature is very, very
No.
small.
No, the publication on Gentleman Magazine, 1867. Henry Frederick Holt.
Goodness.
At our webpage, www.theweddingatcana.org,
Okay.
you may download free 4 publications bilingual, and all these questions are explained
Alright.
and documented.
Okay.
I show you just this. This is the Modelo.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incoherent with the perspective. In fact, the table has not enough surface to sustain any delivery. The table was primarily more elevated.
Right.
This is the model.
No, I'm not doubting. I'm just asking, did anybody else notice before?
Yeah, this is the same.
Yeah.
Para nosotros es igual.
Yeah. Para nosotros igual.
Es
Okay.
igual.
Okay. So those are the questions that I had. And finally, since you're musicologists,
Excuse me.
since you deal with theory and practice of music, Renaissance music, my last question has to do with what are some of your speculations about the choices of the musical instruments that were given to each of the painters?
The choices.
Yes.
Well, in the first concert,
Like-
evidently,
Like how is Veronese changed the arrangements as he went from harpsichord to one kind of viola to another? Do you have any speculations from music theory about why some of these painters were given some instruments? I'm curious.
for musicology, yes. For example, yes. The first concert is the typical Venetian ensemble for funeral rites from more than 1 century ago at 16th century, from the end of the 14th century.
Okay.
For the fifth mutation, I told earlier, we have not a convincing hypothesis, except la osadía, el atrevimiento del Veronese, to include a funeral mass for the dead in the middle in a nuptial bank, to mix, or perhaps a vocal quartet in a refectory where to speak is forbidden. In Benedictine monasteries, you cannot speak. We have not a convincing, because this was the main problem for Cagliari brothers. The second formation roots still remain, I talked earlier, the funeral atmosphere in the Venetian masses for the dead. This is the tradition of Venice. This is documented. Glickson, Venetian hidden enemies, he explained. And the reason for mutate to the next two violin bands, Glickson, in the 3 decades earlier to the Canvas Commission, from 1532 onwards, all Venetian confraternities actualized their instrumental ensembles to the more modern instrument, the violin. All this happened, is documented. Excuse me.
¿No es Honoring God and the City de Glickson?
Oh yes, Honoring God and the City.
Glickson.
Thank you, Penelope. I confused them. Venetian Hidden Enemies is another book. ¿Cómo es? Honoring God and the City. Glickson, Jonathan Glickson. There are historical reasons for the last 4 formations, but we have not a convincing hypothesis except what we exposed here.
Sprezzatura.
Sprezzatura.
In the wedding at Cana.org, you may download at least 4 bilingual, and there are other in Spanish. We cannot attend all the questions. And in Christmas, there will be two new publications. One, but not in the webpage. One, yes. One devoted to the trumpet's reconstructions, because it's the 25th anniversary of Castellón de la Plana Conservatory. And the other one, this is our publication with Jorge, devoted to the first consort, as we introduced here. We have not hurried. If you want continue, we are pleased to be here. And if no, I thought at the beginning, it's a true pleasure and a privilege to introduce these issues in American academic circles in Maryland.
You guys have done so much work.
Yeah,
It's
it's
amazing. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any
Any other?
questions?
Well, thank you guys so very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And just one last thing. We have a YouTube channel,
Yeah.
Manuel Lafarga, where some of these sessions, and next week there will be one more. If you see this and you like, please give us the
Like.
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 Yeah, absolutely.
I like.
Thank you.